every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
You need the right people in the right place at the right time. And sometimes you have the right people in the right place, but at the wrong time.
I've got to keep going forward. I've got to keep looking for revenue streams. I've got to keep looking for growth, keep looking at new ways of doing things.
But, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development program I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated. Yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. On this week's episode of ScaleUp Radio, we'll hear from Hamish Gill, who is the director of F8 Creates. F8 is a creative agency that covers branding, graphic design, photography, and video. And the company actually came out of three separate businesses, three individuals with separate specialisms in 2009. And they decided to work together. And that's what Hamish and Greg and one of the other directors did with the third founder, Joe. And Joe has since left F8 Creates. But there's now a real solid team of 8 people that have really taken the business to a place where Hamish feels that the space now for major growth. So they've got that platform for growth. And as always, there's lots of valuable content within our conversation, including things like how running a successful business can't just be about the money. You've got to have the passion for the work and try to pass that passion onto the team. We also talk about the benefits of treating your clients and thinking about them as retainer clients and trying to make sure that that's how they are, where you can apply the same form of planning and system to each client while still retaining the individuality that each client deserves. And knowing the difference between a good client and a bad client and when to move away from a particular client, even if they're bringing significant money into the business. You can hear the passion from Hamish about being a business owner, and he's a director of a few companies, in fact, and you hear that passion really radiating through our conversation, and it's definitely something to aspire to. So let's hear the rest of the story from Hamish. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm here with Hamish Gill, who's the director of F8 Creates. Hamish, welcome.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
Yeah. Great. Good to have you on board. Really looking forward to this discussion. So we're probably focusing around F8 Creates, but I know you've got 4 other companies that you're a director of, so that might throw up a few questions, I think, Hamish.
Yeah. Yes, I'm guilty of trying to make my life more complicated than it needs to be, I think.
All right. Well, let's start with F8 Creates. So what's F8 all about?
So we are Greg would call us a visual identity agency. We're essentially a creative agency. So we do. So Greg is my business partner. His side of the business is branding, graphic design, a bit of website, certainly website design. My side of the business is photography and video. So we split it by our kind of specialisms, I suppose.
Okay.
But we consider branding to be the kind of the thing at the top that kind of dictates everything else underneath that. And I think that's probably video production is actually the thing we do more of than anything else, I would say. But the branding side of the business helps define our approach to video production.
And were those roles clearly set out right from the start? Is that how you set it up?
So the business started. There was three of us. So it's myself, Greg, and Joe. Greg was a web designer, I was a photographer, and Joe was a graphic designer. We were three separate businesses, and a friend of Joe's and Greg's, I suppose, but more Joe's, sort of introduced us to each other and suggested that we might sort of prosper more by working together.
Right.
That was, I think, 2000 I can't remember, 8, 7, something like that.
Okay.
And we set up F8. We've incorporated as F8 in July, I think, or June or July 2009. So it's our 13-year anniversary this year.
Yep, sounds about right.
So initially, those three roles were kind of our roles, but that quickly was sort of quickly adjusted to. I was the sort of salesperson and helped Greg with websites. Joe was doing the design stuff, and Greg was making websites. Greg doesn't like making websites. We were doing a lot of coding back then. He didn't. That's not the direction he wanted to go in. He wanted to go in the design direction. And I wanted to do photography. I'd had a background in sales, so I ended up being a salesperson for the business. And I didn't just want to be a salesperson. I wanted to do photography, but we weren't getting any photography work. So we spent quite a few of the first years. Well, I mean, I think it was probably about the first 8 years, really, 7 or 8 years, not really doing what we wanted. Okay. At some point in the mix, Joe left. He went off to do his own thing. And yeah, me and Greg, Greg was still trying to make websites, using his own code instead of WordPress. And there was just so much. Me and Greg look back at those first quite a few years of the business and wonder how really we survived.
Okay. So there was a bit of a turning point of the 7 years. I'd like to explore that in a minute. So what sort of, can you give us an idea of the size of the business now?
Yeah. So now I've got, on my side of the team, there's 4 of us. So we've got Will, who's our video production manager, and Rob and Neil, who are our senior and junior video content creatives. Then on Greg's side of the business, there's Greg, Lewis, who does some design and account management type stuff. Then we've got Alex, who does a lot of our web stuff, and Janine, who does web sort of bits and pieces of design. So that's 8, I think.
Yep. We got 4 and 4.
4 and 4. Yeah, and then we've got a few subcontractors we work with as well. So James, our photographer, who does a lot of our photography, obviously. Yep. Okay. And ironically, I don't do any photography anymore. I don't have as much input into F8 these days, but I'm sort of I run the video production side of the business, but our production manager now, Will, who's just taken over the role in May, he's sort of stepped up into that position to allow me to not have to have so much input into F8, essentially.
Okay. And that would be because you've got 4 other businesses that you need to spend some time with as well, which we'll come to in a minute. So what makes, the whole creative world, graphic design world, everything is very crowded, isn't it? What separates you? What do you think makes you a bit different from everybody else that's out there?
I think, well, you're one of our clients, so perhaps you could tell us. I think, I like to think that there's 2 elements to it. There's the sort of on the creative side of things, it's that we do approach everything from this branding point of view. So if somebody comes to us wanting video or photography, our sort of first questions back to the client are around the brand and what they're trying to do with video.
Yep.
And how that's going to, I suppose, interact with their identity, their visual identity.
Mm-hmm.
and wider brand. The other side of it, I think, is that we're not individually, me and Greg, particularly, and this is probably a bad thing really, we're not particularly money focused or money orientated. We both do what we do because we enjoy doing it. And I like to think that comes across in the way that we sort of behave and the way that we approach the work that we do. So we're always trying to give our clients the best sort of value, whilst not, doing ourselves over. We want to do the best work we can, I think.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. And whilst it may not all be about the money, how does the business model work for you? How do you make money effectively?
In what sense?
Well,
we charge for the services, Kevin. I think
you charge for the services. Do you charge it on a project basis, hour by hour, or how do you?
So we on paper it's we have an hourly rate. We have an hourly and daily rates that we work to. There is a bit of I suppose flexibility in that, in terms of we try and look after people who we don't think are going to be able to justify certain. Do you know what I mean? So we can the thing with design is it's almost infinitely scalable. You can do something really basic in a very small amount of time, or you can do something that's very simple, but it take a massive amount of time.
Yeah.
You look at some logos, for example, and you think, well, that's just a simple logo. It's just a font. BBC logo, for example, is just a font. Well, how did that take 10 million quid or whatever? So it's about it's about understanding where the client is within that scale.
So on that purely creative side, yes, I understand that. I know you have, certainly on the video production side, you develop packages essentially, haven't you? And you've got quite a focused and efficient way of producing certain types of videos. So it's almost like you've got a bit of a product there, not just a...
Yes, certainly. And as you've recently experienced, we're trying to... so video production, I suppose, is where I think our business model is. But Greg would tell me I'm wrong. He probably has the same feelings about his side of the business, but I think it's where we've got the most pieces. I feel like we've got almost most pieces of the puzzle in the right places, if you see what I mean. Greg would tell you exactly the same thing about his side of the business. But yes, we do have, if we do a case study video, they always have the same narrative. We always have the same approach, or they have the same narrative structure. We always have the same approach, and the outputs are always the same. So it's this introduction, problem, solution, result, recommendation, narrative structure, and then the output is always 1 2.5 minute video and one short video or one short version. Yeah. But how that's evolved now is that what we're doing for each case study video that we produce for our client, we have a big spreadsheet. So all of our video clients have a spreadsheet, or increasingly all of our video clients have a spreadsheet. And we are populating that spreadsheet with all of the content that we've shot for the client, and then making suggestions to the client about what content we could produce for them without any additional input from us or from them.
Yep. And
then asking them what are the video content they would like, and then kind of combining that into this kind of sort of master plan of content. And what it allows us to do is it allows us to treat all of our clients as retainer clients, even ones that aren't retainer clients, if that makes any sense at all.
Yes, because you've got a long-term plan with clear objectives of what you're trying to achieve. You've broken that down into regular, monthly or weekly elements, and you're working to that plan. So it's essentially fixed, and that recurring element. Yeah, very good.
And that can either be, if somebody wants to become a retainer client, then obviously we can essentially add up all of the stuff that we know that we can produce for them, add up that big number and divide it over how many months they want us to be a retained client, or we can say, well, you can do it on an ad hoc basis, and we're finding different clients have a different answer to that problem. So
very good. So what do you love most about the industry that you're in then? What do you love most about the video production, creative design business?
It's when it goes right, it's just incredibly satisfying. Doing something creative that the output looks good, regardless of be it a corporate case study or a mini documentary or whatever, or a logo, or it's just a photo. It's just massively satisfying being creative and seeing a positive outcome from that, and the client going, oh yeah, that's fantastic. And we do get that. It's rare these days that we don't get oh my God, this is fantastic response from our my video production team. I'm genuinely lucky to have such a good team. I think they're all really exceptional at producing content. And that's, it's just very satisfying. They'll send me stuff that I haven't even been involved in, just to show me, because they know, they'll know that I'll be really pleased with it, and I'll tell them how great they are.
Excellent. All right. Yeah. So I get that. I can hear the passion coming through from you for that. Absolutely. What sort of things frustrate you the most then? If they're the things you love, what frustrates you?
When I haven't had good staff, or when I haven't had a good team, the thing I find this is in relation to another business, but I've had an issue recently with a member of staff who just wasn't pulling his weight, and he wasn't really he made it seem like he was doing his job. Yeah. And then he did a couple of things that made me very frustrated. Just made stupid mistakes, for which, I'm not an angry person. I don't like bollocking people, but there were 2 or 3 occasions where he just got a bollocking, an actual proper bollocking, and I find that very frustrating, because we give all of our staff, they can work whenever they like, as long as they get the job done. They can work whenever they like. They have the flexibility. They come and work in the kiln if they want to, or they can work from home if they want to. As long as they get the job done, I don't mind when they do it. And I'm very trusting. And I think when you hand out that trust, and then it's thrown back in your face by, not a good job. And actually, since this particular person in mine's left, I've worked out that he was doing, I can do his job. Me and my wife have been doing his job. And for the bit that I've been doing, it's been taking me about 20 minutes, half an hour a day. And considering he had at one point a full-time job that I then put down to a part-time job because I didn't feel like. Yeah. And as I say, it's got to the stage where I can do what he was doing in such a small amount of time.
Okay. So we'll come back to that in a bit, I think, because exploring how, with your team of 8, but also the fact that you've got these other 4 businesses as well that you're looking after, how you manage that, how you make sure that people are delivering on what they should be doing, I think will be an interesting line of discussion in a minute. So, okay. And what are some of the biggest challenges within the creative industry?
Biggest challenge in the creative industry, I suppose. I've been very lucky with my video team, especially. We've gone down the apprenticeship route in the past, and it has paid off for us. In the case of the apprentices, or the staff that we now have that were apprentices, right? But I suppose our biggest challenge has been growing the business. I think we found it very difficult to, going back to my point about us being not particularly money motivated, I suppose me and Greg have found it quite difficult to grow, to get enough cash into the business to be able to take on the level of staff that we've needed to take on to grow the business, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So I think why the video team has been so successful the video side of the business has grown a lot quicker than the other side of the business a lot more recently. And a big part of that is that we got to a stage where there was more cash in the business, and then sort of just before COVID, and then we were able to take on Will, who was not an apprentice. We took him on as somebody who is, he's now a video production manager, but we took him on in a senior role rather than a junior or apprenticeship role. And then sort of towards the end of COVID, we were able to take, or say the end of, not long ago, we were able to take on Neil, who was another, he is a self-contained video production company. He was a self-contained video production company, but he wasn't doing very well by himself. He's not so good at the marketing himself side of the business, but he's very good at video production. So we were able to take him on. We've just dropped him into the business, given him a few clients, and he's just kind of, right, I can do that, and I don't have to worry about him. He just does it, and to a fantastic level of ability. Whereas in the past, early stages, the only way we could take staff on was to take them on apprenticeships, and then had to train them up, and then that was, it's a much slower progression.
And what was it that, was there something you did differently that got you into a position where you had some cash in the business and were able to afford Will?
So yeah, the earliest stage, there's a few, me and Greg used to joke about what we used to call the 8 months ago meeting, which I don't think it was ever 8 months ago. It's certainly not 8 months ago now. It's probably about, 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. We had a meeting where, I don't know why it was called the 8 months ago meeting. I think we just kept on referring back to it for ages because so many things happening. We switched our approach to web design and approach to, I can't remember what it was, a few other things in very quick succession. I think there was some choices that we made around realizing that we needed to produce things that were good enough rather than perfect. Ah, okay. I think that was an element of it. That old, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. Yeah. And then also there was in quick succession, we had a series of very poor clients that made us realize that we needed to focus our attention not on a certain particular type of client. And those particular type of clients were, the ones that, sort of quibble about price and quibble about, well, essentially everything. Yeah. I won't name names, but we do have, there's two, well, I might as well. We got, I'm not going to name the full name, but we had a Tina and we had a Derek. And the Tina and the Derek were two very difficult clients. If they hear this, they may recognize themselves, but they just were very hard to service. And we realized, I think, that we needed to not have clients like that. And then we did ditch a few clients because of that. And one of our biggest clients, we actually ditched because they were so difficult and time consuming. They were big in terms of the amount of money they were putting into the business, but the amount of time that they were consuming was way outweighed the amount of money they were putting into the business. So we got a shot of them.
Interesting.
So there's quite a few things that happened in quick succession. Yeah. These were all kind of those sorts of things where you think, oh God, why didn't I realize that sooner?
Really, really good. So a couple of key things there then. So the realizing that you don't have to be absolutely perfect, but equally that then focusing on identifying what a good client is, and equally what a bad client is, and adjusting your focus appropriately. Interesting, very good.
We are increasingly better. I've just recently dumped a video client, and it just, the difference. I had Will texted me afterwards saying, I really appreciate you having my back. I really appreciate that that's the decision that you've made. Like he was very thankful for the fact that we've removed this client, because this client was, I think, actually causing him anxiety.
Yes. And of course, just going back to the other bit about being good enough, if you've got a load of people that are sucking up your time, it's actually very hard then to be good enough for the other clients, for the good clients,
definitely. Isn't it? Yeah. And when you've got a lot of clients that are saying, absolutely, this is fantastic, this is the best thing and best video that any company has ever produced for us, I couldn't be more happy. And then you've got another client who's nitpicking. And I said to the client, the email, when I dumped him, I said, you are the only person who has this issue. That you're the only person that we'll go through this amount of changes with. So I know that it's not us.
Right.
Yeah. It's
okay. Good. So you started back in the day with the three of you. There was that early formative stage in the business, 7 years or so, where you look back on now and you wonder how you got through those. And then Joe left. I'd be interested just to explore that a little bit. You know, what was particularly bad, if you like, or when you look back on it, what did you get wrong in those first 7 years?
Not focusing on the things that individually we enjoy. Spending far too much time, as I say, on clients that weren't. Yeah. So we were spending a lot of time on clients that were paying us not enough money, and so we didn't have enough time to spend sort of on the business, I suppose, as opposed to all of us were spending all of our time working in the business, doing stuff, daily, just making websites. Never had any time to think about our direction as a company, or the idea of having any, of even a conversation about the strategy of how to get, better clients didn't even come up. It was just constantly servicing poor clients and spending all of our time doing it. That is probably the best summary I can give you for the first however many years it was.
Brilliant. And did this meeting coincide with Joe leaving? Was it around that same?
No, it was a little bit after, I think.
So how did you manage to part ways? It can be quite difficult when there's three founders for a business and then one decides they want to go a different direction. How did you manage that?
It was very amicable in the end. Yeah, it was. It was a bit of both things. I think me and Greg weren't. I think because it came from me and Greg wanting to do things our way and Joe wanting to do something else combined, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And we were all, me and Joe have known each other for years. We worked in a pub before. And actually his response, me and Greg did, we were the ones that initiated it and did sit down with him and say, look, I think we need to part company. And I think it makes me feel a little bit sick to think about. It was an awful experience to go through, but actually Joe's response to it was so positive. He was so good about it, and just was like, yeah, okay, lads, I'm fine with that. If that's what needs to happen, that's fine. It leaves me with such a warm feeling with how positive he was about it and how good he was about it. He could have really not been the way he was, but he just went, I'm fine with this if this is what needs to happen. And we're still very good friends now.
Good. And I'm sure that some of the listeners will be curious, and it's about, because you've been building the company for seven years, you'd all invested time and effort into it, got it to a certain point. Did he keep hold of his shares, or how did you manage that side?
We were not in a good way. The business wasn't in a good way then. So There wasn't really anything to keep. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So essentially, you just agreed to part ways.
Just agreed to part ways. Yeah. And it was, and I think he. Yeah, we did struggle on for a few more years after that, but we did struggle for a few more years after that. But then there was a few that 8 months ago meeting, as we called it, was a couple of years after that was when things really changed.
Great.
But by that we got a couple more staff, and things were starting. Pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together a bit better. So.
Yeah. So there's definitely something key in your journey about finding the right people and be able to hire the right people to then really take the business forward, and not just be so reliant on you and Greg. Yeah. Okay. Good.
It's been, the quality of our work, video production work, has gone up since I've not been involved in it. So I think you just have to accept, don't you, that there's an element of pride, I think, when you first take people on. It's it's, you need to do this my way because I know what I want. But actually, ultimately, when you employ people who are, as I say, with Will and Neil, they've both done degrees in video production, in cinema, whatever it is that they did degrees in. They know their stuff.
Yeah.
I give them the freedom to do the stuff that they know. And I'm able to just have little input. So I'll send them little clips of, or names of documentaries that I've seen on the telly that I like the way they're shot and things like that. And then we can have a little bit of discussion about, color theory or shooting angles or lighting and all that sort of stuff. So now we have a much more, I suppose, mature conversation about the way we produce video content. Because it's three people. Well,
yeah, that's an interesting transition, if you like, that I'd like to, maybe just pick up on, because it goes across corporate life as well. You get two quite distinct types of people potentially within corporate. There's those that when they get to a management level, there are those that are scared to have people working for them that are actually better than them at certain aspects. They feel that as a threat for their position, versus those that go, you know what, if I've got good people in my team, that's going to make me look good, and we're going to do right. So how did you, and I think it's the same for us as business owners. We kind of know we've got to get good people in the business, but how do you first of all satisfy yourself, if you like, that you're not going to lose control to somebody else? How do you make that transition from feeling that you've got to be the leader telling other people what to do and follow, versus having somebody else that's essentially at a par or as you say, even better than you at certain aspects?
Slowly.
Yeah. Okay.
A long series of gradual realizations, I think. But certainly taking Neil on at the end of last year. So we are talking, relatively recent history here. Taking Neil on at the end of last year. By that stage, taking Neil on made me realise how good Will was as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But also sort of testing the waters by just going, right, Will, this is your job now. We're giving you this. This is how much we're paying you now. This is how much we think the stuff that you're doing is worth. I'm going to give you a load of more stuff. If you rise to the challenge, you will be rewarded. Okay. And just seeing how he copes. And that's what I've done over the last couple of years. And Will has a incredibly strong innate desire to please and to do very well. Like he totally beats himself up if stuff goes wrong. So he tries really, really, really hard, and it really shows in what he does. That's why one of the reasons I say I'm very lucky with that side of the team, because I have somebody who cares a huge amount, a significant, almost immeasurable amount about not fucking up, basically. So I give him jobs and he rises to the challenge, and then I go, oh yeah, I can trust this person to do this new thing, and on occasions I can trust this person to do it better than me, and the beauty of that is it's freed up. I'm so many steps further back now, and I just have such a broader picture of our video production team, and now I'm able to just go in and we have weekly meetings, or sometimes fortnightly, but most weeks we have quarterly what do you call them,
planning sessions maybe, or
we're always, we have, no, I mean just individual kind of like assessing how the person's going, what they call
I see. A review or a
quarterly review type. And then we set, everybody has kind of targets. Then those targets are sort of financial ones, and also targets for doing particular tasks. So Rob, who's our junior guy, was sort of just given the role of, finding out everything we needed to find out about becoming being able to be a drone flying company, which we've now started. He's now reorganizing all of our backups and data. Neil's been given the job of assessing our sort of pre-production process. At the moment, he's going to then move on to the production process, and it's essentially what it does is I can look at it and go, okay, I can see this isn't quite right. Neil, have a look at this, see what you can come up with, bring it back to us next week, and we'll all discuss. And then we kind of keep doing that until we find ways to do things better.
Excellent.
So it's keep giving everybody responsibility for making incremental improvements to certain aspects of the business, if that makes any sense. And I'm able now to oversee that from this kind of stood back perspective, where I just wasn't, when I was doing everything in the business, I just didn't have this perspective at all.
Yeah. Great. So getting yourself that bit of a helicopter view as opposed to being down in the weeds.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. And that sort of leads into one of the questions I'm going to have, with 8 people, but also with the 4 other businesses that you're a director of. Yeah. How do you manage to spend your time wisely, but also keep your finger on the pulse of, and you mentioned right at the beginning that you had that issue with somebody that wasn't perhaps performing. So how do you make sure that people are living up to your trust and doing the right things?
Well, I thought I was better at that than it seems that I am. The issue that I mentioned with this particular member of staff who was making me believe he was doing more than he was has sort of highlighted that I probably do trust my staff, not more than I should, but I suppose I had those gut feelings with this particular problem person, and I think I probably should have listened to those gut feelings more than I did. I think I let too much go because I'm so busy because of all of the different businesses.
Yeah,
it's very easy for me to go, "Oh, it's probably all right," rather than tackle it head on. And I think that's probably something I've learned recently, is if I get any kind of sense of something not being right, I need to be more on the ball with it rather than letting it slide. So, but all the rest of the staff, from Alex in the kiln and Becky and then everybody in F8, I suppose with Alex and Becky, Alex has sort of in the kiln, she's sort of proved her value. We know that she does what we need her to do, and she can be trusted to do it in whenever she likes, whatever time frame, etc. Whatever hours she wants to work in the day, she gets the stuff done. So now we've taken on Becky. It's part of Alex's job to report to us as to whether Becky's pulling her weight. And the same with Rob, who's our newest in the video team, although he's Will's brother, but Will does, tell me, objectively what's going well and what's not, etc. as well. So I suppose there's trust where the members of staff have got where we've got members of staff that we absolutely know that we trust, we can then kind of put some trust on them to report back to us about the new ones. Okay. Or does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And what sort of things do you measure? What are some of your key metrics that you look at on a regular basis to know whether things are going in the right direction?
I suppose so. For the video team, we're looking to increase our retained clients. So I guess how many clients are switching over to being retained clients would be a measure of success, and obviously turnover. What are the measures of success? I suppose and then I suppose it all just comes down to these incremental, a sort of a sense of these sort of incremental internal changes to systems, how well those are working. But that's kind of like a constant thing. We're always keeping a track of those now.
Yeah. Constant improvement. All right. And what's some of the things I like to ask everybody that I have on ScaleUp Radio, what sort of things have you found work best for you from a business development perspective, finding new clients?
Word of mouth. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I know you're a big fan of networking. I do a little bit of sick when I say the word networking. Makes me.
I was gonna ask you. That's one I haven't heard of. Sick. What's that? What's that stand for?
I don't like. We're all. I'm not very good at. Business networking. Yeah. I don't enjoy it. None of my staff enjoy it. I prefer recommendation, and we've been going long enough that we've got a good reputation.
Yeah.
And we've got a good few customers that we work with who are very good at recommending us.
How do you encourage that within your customers?
Well, encouraging it is something that we have talked about needing to do more. We probably don't do enough to do that, to encourage our clients to recommend us. So I think we are quite lucky that we've got a few people that do sing our praises. But actually, one of the really good things about video production, especially when we're doing case studies, we've done a bunch of case studies for you. I'm pretty certain we're now working with some of the people that your clients. So we meet a lot of new businesses through. Yeah. That's one of the ways video production has grown for us.
Yeah, I can imagine that being a very powerful way of doing it. Yeah. 5
video case studies for a company, and you meet somebody, and when you're doing that interview process with them, you kind of you have to build a quick relationship with them to make them feel comfortable with you. Yeah. So and at that stage they're comfortable with you. So it's
that video case study just in itself, because I think the way that I was introduced to you or found out about you was one of your clients at the time. You produced a testimonial case study video for, and they demonstrated that to me at a networking event, funnily enough. And it was like, I really like the way that was put together. Who did that for you? Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah. I think that's why the production side of the business has grown so much more quickly. And we've been very lucky, actually. We've had some very nice introductions to some, one of our biggest corporate was just essentially somebody in the kiln just went, "Oh, you should speak to Hamish." And the kiln has been, really positive for that in terms of it's not networking in the kiln, it's connecting. That's what we say.
And for those that don't know, kiln is a co-working space that you help to set up with the council, isn't it? And that you then manage.
Yes. So me and Greg, it's a very odd business structure, but me and Greg own the kiln Management Services Limited, which is the management company that provides, or I'm not going to go into too much detail for argument's sake, saying this is actually currently happening. It's not quite currently happening, but it will be soon. The management services company that provides the management services to the kiln CIC. Me and Greg sit on the board of the CIC alongside a representative from the city council.
Yeah,
but it will eventually become our. We will be the city council will step down from the board in a couple of years' time when we've fulfilled all of our KPIs.
Very good. Okay, a couple of other questions that I like to ask people before we close. So, if you went back, choose a point, but to your younger self, what would you do differently? Or if there's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self, what would it be?
In business terms,
probably, but no harm if it's personal as well.
Well, I do wish I got my act together a lot younger. I was a bit of a, let's say, rebellious early 20s person. I didn't have I had a lot of upheaval in my youth. A lot and quite significant upheaval in my youth. And so I went off the rails quite badly in my early 20s. And I kind of do wish I got my act together in terms of, a little bit earlier. I see sort of, Lewis, who's one of our younger team, he's, his early 20s, and I just didn't have a fraction of what he, the get up and go that he's got at his age.
Yeah.
I feel like I could have given myself a bit of a head start if I'd not taken so long to spent so much time messing around. But there's pros and cons, I suppose.
Yeah.
In business terms, I think me and Greg, we've learned a lot of things slowly. I think we probably could have learned a lot of things more quickly if we'd been more open to understanding how business works, if you see what I mean. So I think, we spent a lot of the early years being very naive to how to run a business. And we could have learned a lot more of that stuff more quickly if we'd, either sought out advice or even just done some reading, reading some books or that sort of thing. So, and we still are stubborn about it. We still don't seek out advice. We're not a client of yours, for example, when I've said it a bunch of times, I think we would get something out of being, being a client of yours. I think it would be beneficial to us, but I know me and Greg we are too stubborn to it. We're too stubborn to learning.
I mean, on that, are there any books or webinars or podcasts or something that you feel you got benefit from that you'd recommend to other listeners?
No, but I would say the thing that I think certainly in recent years has done us the most good is, and this, I don't want to sound like a sales pitch for the kiln, but it's being part of the kiln.
Right.
We've had we've come across a lot more good advice through talking to people in that kind of environment. And I'm a lot more open to it in that environment, I suppose.
Yeah. Finding a way to interact with other business people and share ideas and best practices, what works, what doesn't, all of those good things. Yeah.
And it works a lot. That sort of thing is a lot more organic in the kiln, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because I'm just a massive cynic, when it comes to all of the things that I know, would do me a lot of good, getting proper business advice, I'm far too cynical. I don't even know why still to this day, but as I say, in the kiln, it's a lot more, I find it a lot more of an organic process and I'm a lot more open to it. And
okay. So another question I like to ask everyone, what apps or software have you found to be particularly useful for your business?
Asana.
Okay.
Is the cornerstone app of my business world. I have the app on my phone, and I'll wake up at 3:00 in the morning and think, oh crap, put that in there. Or throughout the day, I'm constantly adding tasks into Asana, and then I just go in periodically and reorganize everything, and put everything into projects and all that sort of stuff in there.
Very good.
I haven't been tested, but I think I might be dyslexic, and because of that, I've got terrible memory. So Asana is a part of what is a strategy essentially for me, is being able to have a list. I need lists of everything else. It all goes.
Yeah.
And I also have an app called Due, DUE, which is a reminder app, which just you put a reminder in for a set time, and then if you don't click done, it will keep bothering you about
Forever.
it. You can kick it down the road, but it'll come back and bother you about it again. So I find that very useful for sort of just it's just a meeting that I feel like I'll miss if I don't have a reminder or something like that.
All right, brilliant. No, that's really useful. Thank you.
And Capsule as well. The
CRM Capsule.
CRM and Google Business Suite, whatever the hell they call it these days. The mail and calendars. That's a big part of what we do as well. So
all right, very, very good. And final question. if we're sat here in 5 years' time, Hamish, having this discussion, what has to have happened for you to count those 5 years as a success?
So the first one I would say is F8 continuing on the positive path. It is now without me having without me being in the business all the time, if you see what I mean. So yep. I want to, and I think hopefully it will be part of the success of it is me and Greg stepping away from it and having that helicopter view more, as you say.
Yeah.
And then the kiln, the sort of sustainability of the kiln and the other connected projects, the arches and things that we're working on in Worcester. Obviously I want to see those as a success. Those aren't about cash. Those are about community. Those are about growing business community and an arts community in Worcester.
Yeah.
So seeing those things become successful and thrive, 5 years is a good amount of time, I think, for us to get to the stage where we will know by they're either, working or they will have worked or not. And then, my other concerns are these two photography products. One is a very low cost, sort of stack it high, sell it cheap product that I'm enjoying doing that because of that nature of it. It's fun, the marketing for that is fun, and it's fun to do marketing and then see sales come in because of that marketing that you've done. And then the other photography product is a very, very high quality, very high end lens. So I'm also in that enjoying dabbling in the sort of luxury market and seeing how the luxury marketplace sort of functions and how to sell a luxury product, which is obviously a very, very different into selling a stack it high, sell it cheap product. So I will, there's certainly the luxury one. Me and Chris, who's the other chap involved in the joint venture, we're hoping to turn that into a sort of 1.5 million a year turnover within maybe 5-7 years. So we'll see.
Brilliant. Well, maybe we should have a separate discussion, separate interview around that side of the business. So for now, Hamish, thank you.
Both of those two products and the fun of retail and bringing products to market of far ends of the spectrum in terms of cheap and expensive. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, maybe we will. Maybe we'll work that one out. But for now, Hamish, thank you very much for being guest on ScaleUp Radio. If people listen to this would like to get hold of you or F8 Creates, what's the best way for them to do that?
Just Hamish at f8creates.com or Hamish at hamishgill.com. If you search just Hamish Gill on the internet, it's quite easy to find because my silly name. And equally Twitter. I think it's just I'm /Hamish Gill on Twitter or at Hamish Gill, whatever you call it on Twitter. Be that.
Good stuff. Hamish, thank you very much indeed.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me.
Don't forget to take a look at www.bizsmarts.co.uk to access a great range of resources to help you in your scale-up journey. So that's bizsmarts.co.uk, which is bizsmarts.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.